Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us here today. I'm Hastu, and I lead the growth efforts for us at Southeast Asia and the Australia New Zealand region at MoEngage, and I also have the pleasure to be your host for this evening. Now, just to set some context and tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Now, if you're a marketer, a product manager, or somebody in the industry talking about digital and just talking about digital transformation, I'm sure you've noticed that there's an ever-shifting and ever-changing consumer behavior, especially at a time like this shift has become a lot more prominent. Now, some of you planning to reopen your businesses, and some of you are trying to sustain your current business models. And we thought of putting this a little discussion together to talk about what the new normal is and just how the situation today has changed the way that we engage with our customers. So what we've got for you today, hopefully, is an insightful discussion on consumer-centric marketing in the new normal. And we'll be talking about some marketing strategies, quick tips, and essentially just some ideas on what could help you succeed. And for this particular webinar, we've taken a focus on Australia and New Zealand because we've been experiencing and observing a massive shift in the way that consumers are interacting here right now. And precisely for that reason, we have collaborated with the head of marketing from JimmyBrings. Now, Jamie, thank you for joining us here. But yeah, Jamie here is an expert marketing professional, and he's been doing a lot of work in digital marketing, branding, and customer relationship management. Comes with years of experience in the retail industry for, of course, companies like JimmyBrings, where he is right now, Toys R Us as well, handling their growth, marketing, branding, and CRM across the region. Jamie, again, welcome. Thanks for being here. And you know, the question that everybody asks each other today is, how's it going at a time like this?
Yeah, everything's pretty normal besides nothing really. So much has changed the past few months, and yeah, I'm happy to be talking about it all and figuring out what the new normal is for the next few months ahead.
Right. No, absolutely. Nothing's the same. But yeah, before getting into this discussion, just a quick check. And before we go any further, want to make sure everybody can hear us. Okay, so if you can, maybe just raise your hands or drop a quick note in the chat. And we've got hands. Cool. So you can hear us. Perfect. Now, just to remind you, all this is a live webinar, which means we will have a Q&A round at the end, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions as we can. But just to keep it interactive, and we're going to keep picking up as much of your questions if you have to say. Just please use the chat window over there to drop in any questions you have or anything that you want to hear from Jamie over here, and we'll try to pick some of them up either during the webcast or afterwards. Also, we are recording this, so we will be sure to share a copy of this recording with all of you after the webinar. All right, cool. So let's get this going. Let's get this serious discussion in. Now, Jamie, we have been working together for a while now. I think over a year now, and like I mentioned before, you've of course been working with a lot of popular offline brands, with Toys R Us and of course JimmyBrings. And over a period, you've moved to online retail. You of course started with offline. And at JimmyBrings, which is a digital first brand, you are of course very focused on digital communication as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your past roles and in your current role at JimmyBrings, with a brand that's been delivering joy to people at a time like this?
Yeah, sure. So my background is really heavily based in the retail space. I've pretty much been in retail since my first job, being a Christmas casual at Toys R Us back in 2011, which is 9 years ago now. So retail is my passion. and I've pretty much stayed with it the whole time, obviously being at JimmyBrings now. But I started off as a Christmas casual back in 2011, just whilst doing my high school learnings. I moved into head office a couple of years later, just as a customer service role, answering phone calls, getting to know a bit more about what the brand was about, hearing it from a lens of a customer. And I did that for a couple more years, and that was the same time I was doing my university degree. I then moved into something called inventory planning, which is more around the supply chain space, still at Toys R Us. And I did that for 2 years, which really gave me some context around how the nuts and bolts of the business kind of operated, which is good to get another lens of how kind of it all worked behind the scenes rather than a customer facing. So that was a nice little context piece for how businesses operate. Once I graduated that degree, I moved into marketing at Toys R Us. And when I moved there, there wasn't really much, there wasn't much sophistication around marketing automation, albeit nothing at all really. We were really heavily focused on a catalog or a traditional advertising mix. That was just a legacy thing that pretty much came from America, and no one really explored a digital transformation at that stage. So when I moved into marketing, I actually had a look at all the systems, being pretty much just email marketing at that stage, that they had in place. And they were really, really, really old systems, as I mentioned. They were just spray and praying with emails, much like catalogs. And what we did was we pretty much ripped all those systems out and put in some new systems that really connected some of the data sources that we're getting at the online space at that time. We also merged all our loyalty data, so similar to Flybuys or a reward system that we had for Toys R Us, which really gave us rich offline data, and merged that with the new sophisticated tools, just to get a more holistic perspective of what was going on at a marketing level and really start to change the way we contacted customers, which meant down the track we were actually able to remove some of those catalogs and transform them into a more digital first comms for customers. But at that stage, I moved into more of a space where it was more loyalty and CRM. So once those systems are all pretty much built and ready to use, we actually use them. So when that all happened, it was pretty much at the same time where Toys R Us was actually put into liquidation across the globe. So it was a story that was cut short, but nonetheless, all that learning I took to JimmyBrings, which was quite exciting because that was quite new business at that time, and it was a startup, so my role at that stage was a new role in the business, and it really got me to, I guess, understand how everything kind of worked in the digital marketing space, and applied that at Jimmy. Jimmy being a digital first business, it was quick. We're quick to notice that all of this stuff that we're doing in digital marketing kind of overlapped with everything at a holistic marketing strategy at Jimmy. So it was kind of natural for me to move into a head of marketing role where we could apply all that digital marketing learnings and actually take that into an offline space as well, but keeping it at a holistic perspective. So that's my journey at where I am at the moment.
All right, interesting. And JimmyBrings has, of course, grown quite quickly over the last few months, especially. And yeah, just listening to your journey about your run with Toys R Us and now at JimmyBrings, sounds like it's been an interesting few years as well for you. And of course, that means from whatever we've heard, you've got a lot of experience in sales, customer service, CRM, and now, of course, the core digital marketing experience with a digital first brand itself. And of course, that means a lot of time that's gone into customer communication, marketing, and retail. I think that's really been your core. So just focusing up a little bit and considering right now, a lot of retail companies are finally going online, and more of them going online than ever before. How has this transition that you've personally gone through from offline to online changed the way that you look at marketing and how you strategize? And if you could give us a few examples of what have you been working on from both your personal journey as well as with the brands that you've been working with, on improving customer engagement with this offline to online context now?
Yeah, sure. So I guess as a marketer, I've always kind of been quick to follow trends that have come through. As I'm sure many marketers that are listening could agree with, in 2016, content was king. Before that, there was a social media craze, and everyone really kind of puts their eyes into where that kind of trend is following. So I think when that happens, it's great to follow what's new and what's trending, but it sometimes enables you to lose focus on what matters, which is customer growth, retention, and just brand positioning in general. And I think they're the three things that at the core are really fundamental to a marketing strategy. The benefit of having an online-only business allows us to track data across all sources of the customer journey. We don't have the lost link of offline data. So I guess the struggle of being an offline marketer is you really don't know what you're doing in terms of the return of investment. It's really kind of, again, spray and pray. And that's probably the why that legacy systems are built that way, because they don't really, they can't really measure success to a T. So having that link that at an online level enables you to kind of quickly transition your strategy and actually adapt to what your customers want. And yeah, I guess that is pretty much the benefit of having an an online business. But yeah, I think as well, that comes with traditional businesses being very heavily focused on a merchandise or product-led business. It's all about product level sales, and it's what you're selling. Whereas when you transition to an online business, it all is flipped on its head and it becomes really focused on customer satisfaction. And that's an important, I guess, difference as well.
All right, interesting. And yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you over there. And a couple of the points that you highlighted, that's something we're always talking to our customers about, right? How do you become more customer-centric? How do you always keep your customers first? And I think the best way of doing that really is by means of collecting data and just tracking this data that users are allowing you to use, that users are allowing you to collect and make their experiences better. I think that's really important. And just talking about data a little bit more and using that to visualize and also create your marketing plans. Could you maybe share a few marketing strategies that you've used where you've used the role of the customer, where you've used their behavior for planning and improving engagement or retention, or just how you've been able to use this data to improve the brand perception in itself?
Yep. Okay, sure. For us, we're at the journey at the moment of trying to piece together a single customer view across all our touch points. So we're an app-first business, but we also obviously have people coming to our website. I think it's quite important for us to understand where that customer goes and how that journey takes place. So stitching together things like if a customer comes to your website, then your app, that is important information to be able to communicate. Okay, that means for me, website is heavily educational and very informative, but the sale actually happens in the app. So how do I transition that landing page, for example, to be very heavily focused on an education piece and actually take them along that journey, as an example. Also, having a single customer view also enables you to have an omni-channel campaign or omni-channel program in place, your contact strategy. So for us, we are able to, we now know that an abandoned cart on a push notification works so much better than an email. And having all that data in that one place and that holistic view, again, enables us to do quick changes like that to kind of gain as much conversion as possible.
Right now, absolutely. And also just being able to personalize, like you said, and being able to adapt to the user's context. I think that's really important. And that, of course, feeds into what's been sort of the holy grail for marketers out there. And that's the one-on-one communication from a brand, right? Cool. And I also observed that you spoke about analyzing how active customers are, what channels they're active on, app or website, and are following their cross-channel behavior and analyzing the trends. Now, if we take a look at the current situation in Australia owing to COVID-19, like everywhere else, there's of course been a huge shift in how users are behaving. Now, considering that you're online and people are moving online as well, what would you say about how the shift is changing the way marketing itself works in Australia? Considering Australia's been very offline heavy for a while now, and that's changing. And how are you as a brand leveraging that, being, of course, having the advantage of being online already?
Yeah. Some context. Yeah, Australia was an interesting market to follow with COVID and the reaction that customers took. So there was a lot of panic buying happening, and then suddenly no one wanted to leave their house, which meant naturally online was a massive focus for, I think, every business. There were even some stores closing their bricks and mortar channels, which meant either they close entirely if they don't have an omni-channel strategy, or everything was shifted to online. In terms of media for marketing, as people weren't leaving their house, I think there was a massive drop in out of home. So no billboards or less marketing on billboards. And really what we saw was a transition of where people were consuming media. And I think marketers follow that quite closely. And a lot of the digital marketing space, was heavily infiltrated by brands that had never been there before. So that was quite an interesting change to watch. And I think probably given the amount of success they would have seen, just given the effectiveness and the ability to measure campaigns, I think this is probably these are channels where brands are probably going to stay moving forward. For us, it was quite the opposite. We actually took a different approach where, given the context of our brand, for those who don't know, by the way, we're an on-demand drink service who deliver alcohol in 30 minutes using an app. We had a use case like none other. No one wanted to leave their house. We sold alcohol, so it was kind of a perfect match. And we were lucky enough to have that use case, which meant that we saw quite a fair new customer base come through. So naturally we were getting new customers, but we thought, if the use case is there, how do we leverage that? So what we did, we actually put together a traditional campaign heavily based on a TV commercial. Reason being is we thought we would get, I guess, the most reach efficiently with TV, and that's what we did. We put together a TV campaign and ran that, and it's still running as of now.
Right. Now, I think that was really interesting for me to see. You're, of course, one of the very few digital-first brands globally that's decided to go to TV. I think I was quite excited also to look at the fact that there are digital brands that have sort of merged into what's been a more traditional form of advertising. And I also have to say it was a really, really well-made ad. So congratulations on that. Now, with that, now, of course, on one side, you've gone towards a very traditional channel, which is TV, and started making the most of that. But I've also seen you guys doing something quite interesting, and you've changed your delivery patterns, and you've added a very interesting product along with the spirits that you deliver, and that's toilet paper. It's been all over the news. I mean, it's been trending. I read a lot about it. What brought you guys to delivering toilet paper and alcohol? I'd love to know the story behind that.
Yeah, sure. So I think at that time, it was back in March, where randomly the thing that was being panicked bought the most was toilet paper. No one could really understand why. It didn't really have much correlation as to what was going on with COVID and the symptoms that everyone had. So everyone's kind of, unsure what was going on, and I couldn't even find toilet paper myself in my local supermarket. So this was literally a mass wipeout of all toilet paper in Australia. It was all over the news for a week, and we were talking about it quite a lot in the team, and we decided, if we can source it, what if we delivered it? So we found a provider that was able to give us a couple pallets of toilet paper and we bought it, we got it delivered to our warehouse, and then before you know it, within 24 hours, we were selling it in our van. So we were pretty quick to move on that one. I think, yeah, it was a 24-hour decision, and before the weekend, we had it all up and we sold out within that same day. We actually wanted to also donate $1 for every roll sold to UNICEF coronavirus appeal, just to have a nice spin on it as well. But yeah, I think it just goes to show how quick and adaptable our team is, and that's the way we like it. We want to be able to react to campaigns and make the most out of opportunities.
Right. And yeah, I think it's great to see just how quickly JimmyBrings hopped onto that context. And it's again something that, you know, I love about a brand, and that is being able to find ways to add value to your consumers. And you did it in quite an interesting way, but at the end of the day, you added value to that consumer's life. You were able to deliver something that they couldn't find at the store. So I think that is pretty cool. And of course, I mean, the fact that you did go out and start donating $1 out of each of those purchases, I think it's great that you're doing that a little bit to make an impact to society. So again, I think it's been one of the campaigns that I've been very, very interested to follow, and I think I've loved. But yeah, let's maybe talk a little bit more about some of the other stuff that you've been doing, and maybe if you could give us some real life examples, and for any retail or e-commerce brands out there, is what sort of strategies, or maybe just the one strategy that you think will work for retail and e-commerce, particularly during a time like this?
Yeah, sure. For us, I think that campaign that I just mentioned with the toilet paper is a perfect example. Companies need to be really reactive and adaptable, and have that in their culture to be able to make changes like that and actually make opportunities. Because if you're not a brand that isn't doing that, there's a competitor out there that's going to strive to be that. So I think the core strategy for retailers and e-commerce marketers, especially as they move to an online space, is you have to be adaptable. You have to make change, and you have to do it quick, because it's always going to be who's the first to do it, and that they're going to be the winners. So I think, yeah, the key strategy again is transparency, adaptability, and being able to react. That's something I take away.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, there's actually an interesting study by Statista that we were going through the other day that says Australia's e-commerce market value will increase to about 35.2 billion Australian dollars by 2021. That's next year. And what it also said was that it's going to ensure that 10 out of 10 Australians are now shopping online. Definitely wasn't the case a few months ago. But now that this online shopping shift is already underway, people have already become comfortable with this. How do you see it shaping up in the post-COVID world once this is all behind us? Do you think this is the new normal, or do you think Australians are going to continue shopping online and make that their preferred channel? Or do you think they're going to go back to old habits and go back to the store and go back to what they know of touching and feeling the product that they buy?
Yeah, I think as everyone now would realize, it's such an unpredictable landscape for everyone. It's so hard to predict these kind of things. And as restrictions start easing, like we don't know what's going to happen, and we can only kind of see what the trend was and kind of retrofit what's going to happen in the future. In Australia, we saw gym equipment, we saw bikes, alcohol, all of these categories that just didn't have any reason behind the spike, grow as a hyper growth category. And it's going to be hard to predict what those categories will be as we transition back to normal life, as what is normal though. But I think what we'll see though is there's going to be a lot of businesses that will allow work from home solutions and be a bit more flexible with the actual routine of businesses, which naturally will mean that people are going to be home more. With that being said, I think just because of that, there's going to be a lot more online buying for the in-home experience rather than out-of-home experience. There will be a transition back to some bricks and mortar offline shopping, but I think online is definitely shown its strengths and capacity to be able to handle things like this. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
Right. Now, I think that makes sense. And I've been working with a lot of retail brands over the years. And again, this is something that I've been talking to them about, and it's having that omni-channel presence, right? Especially now that users have evolved, they've gotten more used to digital. They've had their first taste of it, and I just believe that they're going to enjoy having that convenience, the convenience of one click, the convenience of getting a push notification telling you you're running out of toilet paper and you need to stock back up, right? So yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think the current situation, of course, brought a lot of people online, and my bet would be that most of them are there to stay, or at least have sort of hybrid of that online and offline experience. Cool. So also, just based on your observations and the sort of strategies that you've been using, Jamie, if you could share maybe 4 or 5 hooks of what would you recommend for retailers, the more traditional ones out there, right? The ones that weren't on that digital transformation journey before all of this happened, and how would you recommend that they make this shift from offline to online as smooth as possible, considering they really don't have much of a choice right now?
Yeah, sure. There's a few things that I've learned along the way that I think can apply for most marketers or most people that are transitioning businesses from offline to digital. I think the first one is to find experienced digital marketers, or if you can't do that, upskill your current workforce. It is actually quite a complex area that you probably don't need experts in each specialization, but there is a lot to kind of understand as a holistic perspective, especially around digital marketing. So I think it'll be best to upskill your workforce and actually get them to understand basic knowledge of the digital marketing landscape. Even if you work with agencies, it's great to have someone in-house that knows what they're talking about, to speak the same language and actually get the most value out of those agencies as well. I think another one would be agile and adaptable, as I mentioned before, and it really depends on how you execute your plans. It's not bad to have a 6 or 12 or 5-year strategy, but I think it's still great to be able to say, okay, in the next 3 months, what's going to happen? Or, okay, this pandemic has happened. Can we shift and move things to make this work, and deprioritize and reprioritize things in able to kind of keep on that roadmap and then on that journey? So having an agile mindset is quite important for these kind of transitions, because nothing's ever going to go the way you planned. The next one would be finding the right CRM or analytics tools for you to utilize. Having data is one thing, and it's another thing of actually knowing how to use it. And I think that's an important piece as well. Once you start collecting all this online data, how are you going to turn this and actually make the most out of your customer contact strategy? Or how are you going to actually measure your metrics and explain that to the business? So finding a tool, whether it's an enterprise tool if you're at that scale, or a small business tool, is something that you should invest time in. Another one would be always test and scale. So testing and scaling channels is really important, especially as you're tipping your toes in different territories. Having a massive budget into one channel and not knowing what that's going to do for your business is probably not the best strategy. I think diversifying that and actually understanding what responds well to your business is the best way of doing it, because not all businesses will react to the same channels, and it's always about testing and then scaling if that does work. And lastly, I'd say if you have the opportunity to, an omni-channel strategy is probably what you want to deem as the end goal. Don't discount what you're doing in store, but don't discount what you're doing online as well. They should actually talk to each other and complement each other. I think having a one brand is what customers see. They don't see your brand as an online brand and the bricks and mortar brand. So internally, you shouldn't be competing on that channel. You should actually be taking that customer along the journey wherever they want to shop. So whether it's introducing click and collect and having that experience, or finding efficiencies where you can utilize your store network and actually ship from the store and send that to the customer that's closest. I think that's something you need to look at as well, and actually putting it together rather than having separate streamlined siloed teams.
Right, absolutely. I completely agree with you there, especially about online and offline teams not competing and working together. I think that's about time that these teams start working together, sharing data, and delivering that convenience to their users. Now, in your tenants, you of course spoke about having the right tools, having the right MarTech stack, having the right customer engagement and analytics tool for you. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how you picked the right tool for you? What was important to you? Because of course, collecting data is one part of it, but using it is where having the right tool comes in. So could you tell us about what your approach was and what's worked for you?
Yeah, I think when I was trying to find the right tool for especially JimmyBrings, I was trying to find something that firstly could do a lot in the one tool. Having a really small team means that I don't want everyone to learn 20 different platforms each. I want it to be in the one kind of ecosystem where you can do things and actually train them on just one or a few tools rather than a lot. So that was one thing that I looked for, a tool that could have multi-purpose solution. Secondly, being in that first business, I was trying to find a tool that was at first as well. Surprisingly, there's actually not many out there, which again surprised me when I was looking into it, because pretty much there's not many in Australia that would actually do what you want at that first level. So that was another thing that was a really core to what I was looking for. By at first, obviously, I mean having integrations within your app to track behavior on your app and actually feed that back to a single customer view. That were the two main things, to be honest, that I was looking for. But again, it really depends on your business. If you are, again, at an enterprise level, it might make sense to do an enterprise level buy. But if you want something that's always iterating itself and actually being always, I guess, improved on, I would say an enterprise solution is probably not the best thing. Reason being is because they have these legacy systems that are pretty much born in the 80s. And what they do is they just slap on a new UI or a new interface or a new at first solution where it all doesn't work in the background, and you'll start to notice kind of things that don't work properly and you can't do what you expected it to do. And you still won't have that single customer view. For example, I know segmentation in other tools means you actually have to write query, and even email marketing tools you still have to write HTML. That is so old and so based on legacy that no one needs to have these skills anymore. They just need to know strategy and actually know how to utilize the tools. And that's another reason why I chose the platform I chose, which obviously now is MoEngage.
Well, thank you for that. All right, perfect. So looks like that's all the questions I had, but I guess we do have a little bit of time to go into some of the audience questions. So let me pick up the first one for you over here, Jamie, and one that I also was meaning to talk to you about. I thought I'll talk to you about it afterwards, but being a mobile first business, how do you think running a TV ad helped you tap into more customers?
For us, we're always been heavily reliant on digital channels. So I think there's only so much penetration you can get at that level. We could obviously invest more money and get more customers out of it, but it's the same cut through as you would expect. So I think there's a point of diminishing return where you don't get 100 for 100, you might get 150 for 120. So tapping into a new channel was firstly a test for us. We wanted to test a new channel that's a bit of a larger scale in order to get as many customers as we wanted, or as we could at that stage. But to answer your question, measuring something like this is probably more based on brand awareness and brand exposure and a long-term play rather than what sales did I get last week because of this TV ad that ran last week. It's something that is, I think, fundamental for a business to get to a certain stage and establish themselves as a key category retailer. And I think being the first in our market to do so really has established ourselves as a core player in this brand that's has credibility, has trust, and is going to stay long term in this space.
Right, interesting. So wider reach is what I hear, and also different segment of users. It's not the same people that you'd find online. You're now talking to a different set of users, exactly. and of course, brand value adds, right? Yeah.
I think TV is always bought at a reach level. It's always about exposure and eyeballs. A lot of other tools, or a lot of digital marketing tools, yes, you can do that, but the cut through is not there, and it's always around conversion-based buying. So you are targeting, which is great to get a response, but again, you're not opening up your brand to a new audience.
Right, makes sense. Cool. We've got another question, and this is: how do we maintain the brand positioning in the current situation, and what's the best way to know what is the customer need?
This question really depends on, I guess, the category or the industry that you're in. But from a retail lens, I think, like I mentioned, being able to react with what you see at a public space on trends is probably where to start. Knowing what people are doing, if they're not going into bricks and mortar, what are we doing? Why are we then spending all our money on out of home? Or why can we not just move that money into digital? I think following where the customer is going is really key, and that can be just based on what you see in the world. But there's also really good studies and statistics out there that you can actually read and understand what the drop-off of, say, shopping centers are at this stage. But more to that, I think your strategy needs to, again, if you are online in this space, you'll be able to use your own data to find that out as well. Not just external studies and your own kind of vision. Using data and actually seeing what trends and patterns are on your own platforms is quite important as well. For example, if there's a drop-off in, I don't know, your Facebook campaigns, but there's a lot of people coming from Google, you can actually quickly optimize that and actually move money elsewhere. Or if people aren't converting as much on my site, what am I doing differently? Let's test these 5 things and see what works. I think there's no wrong answer in this space. You have to try everything in order to either maintain where you're at or figure out where does your brand want to go throughout this time, and actually reposition yourselves and define that for not just you but your team as well, and really try and get to that space. So if you want to be the next X retailer, tell them how you're going to do it and what you're going to do for it. Make everyone come along the journey with you.
Right, makes sense. So basically just open your eyes, look around, look at the trends, go online, see what people really want. Like what you guys did with toilet paper. It was right there, and reevaluate what value you bring to your customers, and then define your way forward from there.
I'd probably add something else as well, where it's actually quite an easy one to follow, which is just Google search volumes. Google have this free tool where you can actually see where you index if you have a brand term against your competitors, or at a category level, say, for example, on-demand delivery, where that's trending in the market, just to have an overview of what's actually happening, and if it's your brand or if it's the whole category as well. That's a good way to kind of understand if it's you that is lagging or the whole market itself.
Sure. All right. And looks like we've got time for the one last question, and that is, you mentioned that moving from offline to online activities gives you the ability to collect a lot of customer data. So maybe, Jamie, you could tell us a little bit about the types of data points and types of information that it is important for a brand to collect.
Sure. For me, I classify data on our side in two ways. There's transactional data, which is based at the point of sale, and then you've got behavioral data as well. They're two data points that you own. One is obviously based on the behavior of once they reach your ecosystem. The other is, what are they purchasing? Who are they at that stage of purchase? That's the data you can own, and you can actually integrate those two to make some really cool automated campaigns and merge them all together to get a holistic view of customer, and not just what they're purchasing but how they've got into that stage as well. Otherwise, there's other data that you can collect out of your own campaigns. Like I mentioned before, Facebook allows you to have so much data of how many people you're reaching, what your click-through rates are, and other tools as well that enable you to see at a widespread market level who you're reaching, and then pushing that all down to the funnel. So if I've got 1 million people that I'm reaching, there's 1,000 people coming to my site and 100 people actually purchasing. You'll be able to understand where you can actually improve along the journey, whether it's you need to target better, there's too many people coming to your site and they're not great leads, or maybe my site's not as well designed as I thought, maybe I can improve it there. Or again, maybe my products are just too expensive. I don't know. But that's a good way of doing it, I think. Having those 3 data layers and stitching that together is probably a great way to see how you can optimize your marketing funnel.
All right. Perfect. So looks like that's it for us today. Brings us to all the time that we had. And everyone who's joined us today, thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, so we've just got a small poll for you guys. So if you could all just maybe take a few seconds and fill this out for us before you leave us for the day, that'll be amazing. And Jamie, thank you so much again for taking the time out for about all of the things that you guys have been up to over at JimmyBrings, and some of the really cool stuff that you've been doing over the last few months. And a big thank you again to the audience for coming in, joining us, and stay tuned to MoEngage over the next few weeks and months. We're putting out a lot more content. You can follow us on YouTube, but we'll of course also send over a quick email with the recording of everything we spoke about today, so you have that handy. Right. Again, thank you everyone. Have a great day ahead, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon on one of these webinars again.
Thanks, Hastu. Thanks, everyone.